The GNOME Foundation is broke, and they have had to lay off 33% of their already small staff. I know, you're as shocked as I am. Remember when I was reporting on this just earlier this year? Where is this here? This is from April of this year. Is the GNOME Foundation going to go bankrupt in 1 year? It looks that way. And then I go into details showing their numbers and how they've run out of money and they're not bringing in enough revenue. And of course, they're going to have to do more layoffs. And I started talking about this, to which many people throughout the tech industry derided me and said, "Oh, that Lunduke, curse that Lunduke, he's a Nazi or something for using a spreadsheet and looking at tax returns and doing the math." Well, lo and behold, numbers don't lie. The GNOME Foundation is broke, and they just laid off 33% of their staff. This update from their board of directors was posted just a few hours ago. I'm going to read a few snippets to you now, but they skim over stuff. They really just, they talk about what's happening, and they just jump past why. I'm going to show you why. Dear GNOME community members, we want to provide you with an important update on recent developments at the GNOME Foundation. They have a big whole section entitled, "What Has Happened?" And again, they don't really tell you why all of this has happened. They just glance all over the details in order to not take responsibility. It's glorious. Quote, "The GNOME Foundation Board of Directors has approved a budget for the coming financial year, October 1st of 2024, which just happened, through to September 30th of 2025. Their fiscal year runs from October through September. That's how their tax returns is that way as well. In the process, we've had to make some tough decisions to ensure the foundation's long-term financial sustainability. What is impacted? Staff changes. Oh boy. Regrettably, we have had to reduce our staff. Caroline Hendrickson and Melissa Wu, basically their creative director and their director of community development, are no longer members of the GNOME Foundation staff team. We sincerely thank them, blah, 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 blah. Now, that's only 2 people. However, that means that they're now down to 4. They are not a huge organization. And I've mentioned this before. Considering the immensely popular usage of GNOME, the desktop environment, and many of the software packages that goes along with it, within roughly all of the major enterprise Linux companies, Red Hat and Canonical with Ubuntu and SUSE Linux Enterprise, all of them utilize GNOME. They're reliant on GNOME. It's a cornerstone of their enterprise offering, bringing in literally billions of dollars of revenue. The fact that the GNOME Foundation, being this critically important to multiple enterprise agencies, can't figure out how to bring in enough money to keep 6 staff members around is astounding. I mean, that takes an amazing level of ineptitude that borders on the almost paranormal. It's crazy. Continuing, operational adjustments, critical tasks will be redistributed among remaining staff. We will be reaching out to the community for more support. So basically, they need help. So they're like, we don't have staff anymore, so we need help doing fundraising and organizing and marketing and all that sort of thing. Unless additional funds are secured, there will be significant reductions on community, board, and staff travel to events. We'll be reassessing which events are most critical for staff attendance. Basically, they're broke. They are out of moolah. Now, certain things are going to continue. They've got funding for certain events, not a lot of events. They have a couple of little 2-day events and community run events, but that's about it. Now, they have the whole section on why this has happened, and I'm going to read it to you now, not because of the information it provides to you, but because of the information it doesn't. And I think that is deeply telling. Quote, Our plan for the previous financial year was to operate a break-even budget. Well, that's a good plan. Nice plan. We raised less than expected last year due to a very challenging fundraising environment for nonprofits. On top of internal changes, such as the departure of our previous executive director, Holly Million. Many of you will remember Holly Million. She was the GNOME Shaman. That's right. The GNOME Foundation hired a professional shaman, not a religious shaman, mind you. I'm not being derogatory towards people who are religiously a shaman. She was a professional shaman. She decided she liked the shaman name, so she got into the business of making shaman water at her home in California and taught YouTube videos about how to make shaman water, and then sold it online in little jars, and then provided a course where people could pay her to learn how to become a professional shaman themselves. It wasn't a religious thing. It was a very strange business. She had no real technical experience and really no successful fundraising experience. All of her experience with nonprofits and the like were borderline disastrous. I pointed all of this out at the time that Holly Million, the GNOME Shaman, was hired, which the GNOME Foundation did not like. Many people, in fact, went out on a limb to tell me how wrong I was and how much of a savior Holly Million was going to be to the GNOME Foundation because of her amazing experience. They were crazy people. All of them were crazy people and were profoundly wrong. And it's interesting to see now that Holly Million has left the GNOME Foundation after 9 months on the job, I believe. Hold on, I've got a thing here. No, that's a different one. There we are. GNOME Shaman departs as executive director after 9 months on the job, her only accomplishment being a 5-year plan of diversity that was absolutely insane. Now they're essentially blaming a challenging fundraising environment for this issue. However, if your primary users are enterprise organizations bringing in hundreds of millions, if not billions, using your software, you don't need to go begging with bells in front of a Walmart like the Salvation Army. You just simply sit down and have a meeting with a handful of CEOs and you're funded. It's really, really easy. Like dog easy, like do it in a week and you're done sort of easy to fund everything the GNOME Foundation is doing and then some. So they know, and they know that. They have to know that. This is wild. I'm going to continue here. The GNOME Foundation has a reserves policy which requires us to keep a certain amount of money in the bank account to preserve core operations in the event of interruptions in our income. Well, that's reasonable. That's a reasonable policy. All organizations have something along those lines. In order to meet our reserves policy, this year's budget had to reduce our expenditure to below expected income and generate a small surplus to reinstate the foundation's financial reserves to the necessary level. Basically, they started eating into their reserves beyond what was necessary because they're so utterly broke. And they're having to lay off staff just to be at the break-even point. That's where they're at right now. This is not great news. Now, what's next? They call this out. They're gonna continue to search for a new executive director after the departure of the GNOME Shaman. Quote, "We are actively searching for a new executive director. This process is unaffected by the current budget constraints as we are exploring different ways to fund the role." Read between the lines there. They do not have the money to pay for an executive director. They are exploring different ways to fund the role. Think that one through for a minute. That's right. They don't have the money to fund the job that they're trying to hire for the person that they hired previously that was a shaman that did a terrible job, along with all the rest of the people working on it. Community support. We're asking for your support in several ways. Look for opportunities to volunteer and help us out because we don't have enough people working for us. Share ideas on how to organize and improve activities in this new context. And consider making a donation to support the GNOME Foundation's core priorities. Please give us money. And I don't blame them for asking for donations. They're a foundation. I mean, they need donations. However, again, Red Hat, IBM, Canonical, SUSE, and so many, Oracle. There's so many companies with very deep pockets that rely on GNOME. Go to them, strike a deal, make it happen. But I'm gonna call out this point because I found this interesting, and I'm gonna stay on top of this. They list as one of the bullet points for what's next: transparency. Quote, in the coming weeks, we'll share a more detailed report of the current finances and the approved budget, including specific categories and the reasoning behind various decisions. Okay, that's good. That's very good. They haven't been super transparent lately. Just to give you an example of this. Okay. There's the Bankrupt thing. There's the 5-year plan that was terrible. Here we go. Back in July, just a couple of months ago, we found out that the GNOME Foundation had kicked out an elected board member, right? Someone that just the rank and file GNOME contributors, developers, GNOME members, right? The people who contribute to GNOME had elected to represent them on behalf of the users. That person got kicked out of the GNOME board in secret, and the GNOME Foundation, the GNOME board, elected to tell nobody about it for 2 months. They kept it totally secret. They essentially lied by omission on all of their board meeting minutes and reports. They didn't publish things they were supposed to publish. No transparency whatsoever. And they only finally fessed up that they did this. They basically undid the fact that there was elections in the GNOME Foundation. They didn't like who the GNOME Foundation elected, so they undid it. They only fessed up to it when they were about to have a conference where all of the GNOME board members were going to be present or in a video chat. And that person that got kicked out wasn't going to be there. So everyone was going to be like, where's that person? I voted for them. Aren't they on the board? They're the one person that's not here. That's the only reason that they fessed up and were in any way transparent or honest with the GNOME users. But now, oh man, are they going to be transparent now? Because that's what they do. Wink, wink. Through these difficult decisions, the GNOME Foundation is able to meet its reserves policy, ensuring sufficient funds for the coming year. They're broke. They're going to need to do this again soon. Our budget for the new financial year is realistic and supports 4 full-time staff who are able to support key operations like finance, infrastructure, and events. Okay. I need to back up here a little bit because over the last year, I have been very critical of GNOME. I mean, some of the little articles I've mentioned here are just scratching the surface of my criticism of them. And every step of the way, whenever I have pointed out potential issues with fundraising, with their finances, pointed out problems with their balance sheets and kind of looked through it all, it's been pointed out to me that their finances are realistic. They've used that word many, many times. And every time they have said, our finances are very realistic, it has turned out that their finances were insane and delusional every single time. Every time I've been right, every single time, and every time they have said it's realistic, whatever their finances are. Oh, we've got a balanced budget now. We're being realistic. Oh, we lost this person. Oh, we kicked out that person. Oh, executive director quit. Oh, we just laid off some more of our staff. Oh, shoot, we're flat broke. Every single time. Now, this is going to keep going on. Thank you for your continued commitment to the GNOME community, and thanks for all the existing donors, sponsors, and advisory board members who support blah 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 blah. All right, this is sad to see because again, from the point of view of the computer industry, the Linux industry, the open source industry, enterprise computing in general, GNOME is a very, very big component of it. I mean, a lot of Linux users I know don't necessarily use GNOME. There's KDE and XFCE and all sorts of different tiling window managers and compositor users out there, and God bless all of them, right? I don't really use GNOME myself anymore. But for the enterprise open source world, GNOME is the standard. It's the de facto. It's the one that powers all the screenshots from all of the enterprise Linux distributions out there, as well as many other operating systems to boot. So when you see the foundation behind it having this much continued, ongoing, constant struggle, it's concerning, because that doesn't mean anything good is happening. You know what I'm saying? This isn't a one-off, right? This is a constant thing. Every couple of months, GNOME is having a yet another ratcheted up level of crisis and catastrophe. I mean, at the current level, I mean, they're going to hire a homeless drug addict to be their new executive director, and he's going to embezzle the last remaining funds. I mean, that's the next step in ratcheting things up here for them. And it doesn't need to be that way. Right? It really doesn't. Like I've pointed out already, it's very simple to rectify this. I'm going to go ahead and put this out there straight up. GNOME Foundation, I will, for real, be your executive director for 1 month for free. And I guarantee you, I mean, this would be easy to pull off, that by the time I leave as executive director, your finances will be stable and you'll be able to hire the people you need, and the people you don't need will be out in their keister. Right? I could right that ship in 30 days. It's not hard. And that's not because I'm some wicked special man. It's because the job is so obvious and easy to anyone who has worked in the open source industry, especially at a managerial or executive level. So you just know the people and the costs and all that sort of thing, which there are a lot of those sorts of people around. That is an easy job. It is an easy job to pull off. And the fact that the GNOME Foundation hasn't been able to pull it off suggests to me that the entirety of the GNOME Foundation is fundamentally inept at their job. So I'm going to make this very clear. I am not joking. You want a free executive director who will come in and right the ship? I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll fix it. I'll leave. I have no interest in doing it long term. I'm not even a GNOME user. I used to be. I like GNOME just fine. But I would come in and fix it, and you'd be better off financially than you are today. Now, here's the crazy thing. I have a long, long track record of getting stuff done in the tech industry. I've been a VP of engineering, a VP of technology, a director of marketing. I've worked across the board in open source and Linux world. When it comes to this sort of thing, I'm probably one of the most uniquely qualified people to do this job. However, there is no chance in hell that the GNOME Foundation would take me up on such a generous offer, because I am officially not just banned from the GNOME Foundation, but they have banned many, many, many people from being contributors, financial contributors, engineering contributors, testers, documentation contributors, and just users within their forums and their communities for uttering my name. My name within GNOME is the name of he who shall not be named. I'm like Beetlejuice. You say Lunduke 3 times, and apparently I appear and just wreak havoc with weird little monsters that seem like they're claymated. No joke. The GNOME Foundation has done me a solid. I'm being very clear about this. The Lunduke Journal was doing okay before. At the beginning of this year, the Lunduke Journal of 2024, we were doing okay. We were keeping the lights on, and I was able to do this work full time. But then the GNOME Foundation, they declared that my name was so dangerous that people can't even say my name or link to an article, no matter what it says, no matter what the reason is. And that caused such a massive spike in subscribers to the Lunduke Journal. People flocked to lunduke.locals.com in droves at that point to sign up. I am now extremely successful. The Lunduke Journal is doing great. The Lunduke Journal is in no danger of going out of business, thanks in large part to the GNOME Foundation. And I kind of feel like I should return the favor. So I'm not joking about this. GNOME Foundation, if you're serious about fixing yourself, if you're serious about having financial stability, if you're serious about being focused on delivering great software, contact me. I will be open to it, I will be helpful, and I will be receptive. But they're not gonna, because they're not interested in that. Anyway, this is fantastic. Did I hit on everything I wanted to talk about? I think so. Man, the thing with the 5-year plan. Did any of you also see the 5-year plan? The GNOME Foundation was in here saying, oh my gosh, this is a really challenging fundraising environment. Well, it would be a little bit easier if you didn't come up with a 5-year plan. They published this in May of this year. They came up with a 5-year plan that literally took them 6 months, according to this, to create. And it was like a 1.5 pages long of bullet points with no details that mostly talked about how they were going to have a lot of diversity, and that was going to result in magic money. And eventually they might think about making a PowerPoint slide. They literally had a big thing about PowerPoint slides. I don't even have it here. If you go look at the GNOME 5-year plan article over at lunduke.locals.com, you'll find it. But they talked about how they were going to eventually create a PowerPoint slide talking about how good GNOME is and how GNOME has helped a lot of things. And GNOME's used a lot of places. They didn't make that PowerPoint slide in half a year. They came up with the idea that they could think about eventually one day making a PowerPoint slide. What the hell are they doing? Of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion does not result in money. It never does. Stop it. Stop it. Thinking about creating a PowerPoint slide and then not creating it, it don't do nothing. You can't even give the presentation because you didn't make the slides yet. This was what they came up with for their 5-year plan. This literally took them 6 months. They paid their executive director, the GNOME Shaman, for this for half a year. And this is what they did. Not fundraising, not going to Red Hat and IBM and Oracle and Canonical and SUSE and everybody else and ensuring their financial viability. No. They simply spent 6 months and huge amounts of money creating a 5-year plan that in no way addressed making sure they could stay in business. In no way. I dive into it in detail and dissect every little part of it in this article. You can go check it out. It doesn't go into it at all. They did this. They bankrupted themselves. That's what they did. They bankrupted themselves in a massive, massive way. And they're not going to let themselves get out of it. I'm going to give them an out. And you know what? If they don't want me to be their executive director, contact me in private. I won't even tell anyone. And I will direct you to a number of individuals in the open source world who, again, could go in and in 30 days right the ship and make GNOME profitable again. Easy. I know a ton of people that could pull this off. I'm not some special magic man here. This is an easy job. The fact that they won't do that, there's no way they would do that because I am basically their Beetlejuice. It's telling. It's highly telling. So here's what's going to happen now. Over the next 6 months to maybe 9 months, they're going to have to lay off more staff. Watch, because they're not going to fix the problems and they're going to continue to have to reduce staff. They're already down to 4 people. They'll be down to at least 3 in about 6 months, give or take. 6 to 9 months, they'll be down to 3, maybe 2, but I'm going to say 3. My initial estimate of them being totally bankrupt in 1 year or being on their way to bankruptcy, I think was off by about 3 months. But it was pretty close, not seeing their internal numbers, because they, again, were being about the opposite of transparent. It was hard to do the math, but I got it within about 3 months. So I think what we're looking at realistically, sometime next summer, they should be at the point where they have like 1 person left, something like that. We'll see exactly how it goes, but there you go. There you have it. Here's yet another thing I'm putting out there into the universe that's going to make the GNOME people absolutely lose their mind. They're going to tell everyone how wrong I'm getting it this time, which is funny because they told everyone how wrong I got it every single time I've reported on them. They've reported on how wrong I got it. And this is like a small example of what we've gone over today. And in every single case, I've been 100% right. The only time I think I've been off is that I think I was off by a couple months in how long it was going to take them to lose all their money completely. A couple months. All right, everybody. This is both sad and hilarious. It's a combination. You know what I mean? It's gratifying in that it's nice to be right. It's vindicating in that so many people attacked me in the Lunduke Journal's reporting, and yet we were proven again to be 100% correct. But it's sad to see this sort of thing happen. It doesn't need to happen, and it's still fixable. It is. It truly is. But only if they want to fix it. So we'll see if they do. Thank you again to the Lunduke Journal subscribers, many of whom found out about the Lunduke Journal thanks to the really weird actions of people like the GNOME Foundation, who banned the word Lunduke from being uttered. So thank you to all the subscribers at lunduke.com and lunduke.locals.com. You make it possible for me to do this reporting, talk about these topics, do this analysis, and just keep the lights on here at Casa de Lunduke. So with that, I want to thank all of you. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.